Ambulance is out in theaters now. New action film from Michael Bay, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Eliza Gonzalez. It's a remake of a Danish film from 2005, and the storyline is very, very simple. Bank robbery goes wrong. Two brothers, who are the only remaining members of the crew, are forced to hijack an ambulance in order to escape the building and the police blockade, and the only reason that the police doesn't just crash into them instantly to stop the car is that in the back there are hostages. A wounded policeman and the paramedic trying to save his life, essentially performing difficult operations during a high-speed chase across Los Angeles. Now, I will admit, when I first saw the trailer, I thought to myself, well, that's an interesting idea for a set piece, for a single sequence in a heist film. And I can see it working, stretched out to 10, maybe 15 minutes, but before moving on. But I'm really not convinced if this one idea can support an entire 2-hour movie built around it. Having now seen Ambulance, I can say with all certainty, the idea cannot support an entire 2-hour movie built around it. I think the film starts fairly engaging, but as time goes on, it becomes more and more tedious and unbelievable, and by the end I was kind of bored with the whole thing. And I thought to myself, well, it's kind of obvious when you think about it, isn't it? That you can't have a movie be just 2 hours of car chase, and that's that. It doesn't work, you need something else. But then I remembered Mad Max Fury Road, which is exactly that, 2 hours of car chase, and it is a magnificent film. So maybe the reason or reasons why Ambulance sucks are much more complicated than just the idea not being good enough. Let's try and break it down then. First problem, the idea is not good enough. The central problem with the film for me was the suspension of disbelief, which quickly becomes pretty much impossible. The movie expects me to believe that 1. The cop bleeding out can be kept alive for 2 solid hours because the paramedic is trying to save him, despite all the crazy maneuvers done by the driver, despite the ambulance running into things multiple times, despite his actual spleen being ruptured at one point, despite the paramedic sticking her entire hand into his body at one point. And he still makes it to the end. And, I'm not a medical professional, but it's just, I'm not buying that for 1 second. The movie also, secondly, expects me to believe that throughout all of this, the police and the FBI and the special anti-bank robbery unit can't figure out a way to stop the ambulance, despite having mobilized dozens of cars, multiple helicopters, and having access to the city infrastructure. They apparently don't want to risk the life of the cop inside, who, let's face it, should have been dead 10 times over. But they have no problem crashing and exploding multiple other cars during the chase. So in terms of what is happening in the movie, it's just egregious. There was no point past the first 10 minutes where I believed that, yes, this could have been a real situation that could have really happened. Second problem, the dialogue is awful. The scenes in the ambulance are somewhat saved by the tension and the fact that Mateen and Gyllenhaal are solid actors. The former is more believable and he's sort of the heart of the film. But Gyllenhaal he's kind of all over the place. Sometimes calm and collected, sometimes psychotic, sometimes aloof and weird. And I still think he's doing the best job possible with the script he is given. The fault is clearly with the writing. However, outside of the ambulance, things get even worse. Whenever we switch to the police and the banter between them, I just wanted to walk straight out of the theater because the dialogue is horrendous. Unfunny jokes, stupid lines. At one point, Michael Bay even begins to collapse onto himself and implode as a director because he directly quotes the titles of his 2 previous movies in the span of like 10 minutes. I don't know what he was even thinking. And I know what you're gonna say right now. Why do you care about dialogue in an action film? It's supposed to be exciting and look good. Well, here's problem number 3, the cinematography. Michael Bay seems obsessed with crazy, dynamic drone shots, of which there are plenty. He also uses a ton of establishing shots and wide pictures of Los Angeles. And yet, despite all of that, somehow he manages to shoot his action in a way that is almost incomprehensible. Outside of the 2 or 3 key sequences, I was struggling to keep track of what was going on. Where was the ambulance now? Where was it heading? The geography of the locations. I mean, it's weird because a scene will often open with a wide shot, which is kind of useless because it shows us just the neighborhood without the actual ambulance and the car chase in it. So we see some buildings and streets, and then there's a cut to a much narrower shot of the ambulance from the outside, of even from the inside. And I have no way of connecting those 2 shots. I didn't know the relations of objects in space. And then, of course, the more dynamic the chase gets, the less we actually see of it. Quick cuts, quick shots, people are driving around, turning, crashing, but none of it holds any weight for me because I'm not sure how and where to place all of that. Also, there's a timeline problem. The story starts in the late afternoon and then seems to be going essentially in real time, so 2 hours from that. And at one point, we even see the sun beginning to set behind the horizon. But then in the next scene, it's back again high up in the sky. What is this? There's no continuity. I mean, there's like a perpetual LA afternoon with varying degrees of sunset happening. I was very confused by that as well. Seemed like the movie was taking place in some sort of limbo dimension where time doesn't exist. And on the topic of sunsets and wide shots of LA, it's very clear to me that Michael Bay loves the city and he wanted to show off as much of it as possible, revel in it, as it were. And it is kind of beautiful in a way, but again, as soon as we drop back down to the street level, it all goes to shit, which made me think that I would actually be down to watch a slower Michael Bay movie, which could be this sort of postcard from LA, to explore the city with him, rather than go into the explodey, shooty stuff as usual. Problem number 4, the runtime and the pacing. As I said, it's hard to believe a chase like this could last this long, and out of curiosity I checked the runtime of the original Danish film, and that one was 1 hour 20 minutes, which sounds reasonable. This one is 2 hours 16 minutes, and believe me, you feel every minute of that extra hour. Around the middle part, things just seem to completely run out of steam. You don't know what exactly is the plan of the robbers, what they want to do, how they want to do it. The police doesn't seem to have any idea of how to stop them. So you're just kind of watching the film go on inertia alone. And the ending is also so drawn out. I was like, when is it finally going to be over? When is it just going to cut to black? Problem number 5, and I think we'll make it the last one. The music. I swear to God, the main theme is straight up stolen from Hans Zimmer and The Dark Knight Rises theme, with the characteristic drum beat. I mean, and it of course made me think I'd much rather watch that movie instead of this one whenever it would play. And yeah, I mean, alright, I think that's enough. You can kind of guess my opinion of the film from the review already. I think it's pretty awful and wastes several good actors on a nonsense plot filmed in an incomprehensible way. Cool idea for a single sequence, idiotic premise for a poorly executed feature film. And, if you want to watch a good heist crime movie set in LA, Heat is always there.